Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Decipher podcast. My name is Dennis Fisher, and my guest today is Antonio Cocomazzi from SentinelOne Labs. Antonio, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Dennis. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So, I wanted to have you on today to talk about this new research that you did on FIN7, which is a very well known financially motivated cybercrime group that SentinelOne Labs has done quite a bit of research on. Plenty of other research teams have done research on them as well. But you published a new report this week that looked at some of the evolution of the group, specifically some of the pseudonyms that they're using and some changes to one of their pretty well-known tools, AVNeutralizer, which they use to sort of, as it says, neutralize security tools on compromised machines. So I have a few questions for you, but I wanted to start with what got you interested in digging into Fin7 right now specifically?
Sure. Basically, as you introduced myself, I work for SentinelOne. SentinelOne is a company that has advanced platform security that protects from most threats. So we and my group, my research group, closely monitors for threat actors that try to tamper with their solutions, like our solution. So
Hmm.
we are always on the look for this kind of activities, and this started quite some time ago, 2 years ago, because we started to notice this usage of impairment tool back in the past in the black basta. I mean, by ransomware operators that was developing deploying black basta lockers, and since then we have done a lot of research and work to track the threat vector, to find any possible evolution of the tool, and to also expand our understanding of the threat vector behind this development. Mainly because we want to understand, due to the fact that we noticed that this kind of impairment tool they are developing is quite sophisticated for a cybercrime actor, threat actor.
Hmm.
We wanted also to explore other of their TTPs in their arsenal that will be potentially put at risk our customers mainly. So I ended up to do all the attribution, to keep tracking the deep and dark web about this kind of interaction between ransomware groups and the sellers, and that's what has been the initial interesting point. Let's say the starting point. Let's say.
Gotcha. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, Fin7 has been around for quite a while. They've been active not just in typical cybercrime operations, but you mentioned the Black Basta ransomware, which they've used in the past. They've also used the Carbanak backdoor, which I think this report was one of the first times I've seen Carbanak mentioned in a couple years. It's kind of faded off, but it's still around, I guess. People are still using it. But I wanted to ask specifically about that AVNeutralizer tool, which Fin7 has been using. They've used it in the past, but what were the big changes that they made to it in this most recent research that you did?
Yeah. The initial version of a VNetralizer was mostly a copy paste from an open source tool that was known as Backstop.
Okay.
And by the way, Sophos did a very good technical blog post about it, and they Sophos tracked this tool internally as AUKill. We have an expanded tracking of the tool in which there are significant overlap with this OKill. And the way it worked initially was just by exploiting a known vulnerable driver. It's not vulnerable, but a driver that has some weakness, that is the Process Explorer driver by Microsoft.
Hmm.
And basically, this driver um, allows attacker to gain enough privileges to tamper with security solutions. Usually, security solution has anti-tampering mechanism, so attackers want to move to the kernel land to run code with higher privileges,
Yeah.
and Process Explorer driver allow this. I mean, at least allow it in a way that would cause denial of service condition in protected processes, in EDR processes. That was the initial version. and mainly also Microsoft did something about it. I mean, not for this specific tool, but just because Process Explorer driver has been exploited in the past by multiple threat actors. So at certain point, Microsoft updated the Process Explorer driver, and basically now you cannot interfere anymore with protected processes from the kernel.
Yeah.
Okay, so they added a mitigation, and also moreover, Microsoft banned the Process Explorer driver version previous to this update. If you
Okay.
browse through the Microsoft olds and publish a known Microsoft Windows WDAC list, that is like Windows Defender Application Control list, that contains a series of rules that will allow or deny driver loading, mainly on some specific properties. And one of it bans Process Explorer with this, let's say, vulnerable version. The new version that I have found uses updated version, so it's not banned by Microsoft,
Hmm.
and it uses in conjunction with it another Windows driver, and this time is more dangerous because this Windows driver is shipped by default to Windows installation. Okay, so it's not, we are often used to see bring your own vulnerable driver. Okay,
Right.
like in the case for Process Explorer, in this case they don't even need to bring because they find it on the machine itself. And it's the proc launchmon driver that is used. The intended usage of this driver is for the TTD, that is a debugging feature of that Microsoft offers. And basically, the combination of these two drivers together allows to create some failures in common ADR implementations, mainly because the TTD monitor driver allows to suspend processes from the kernel. Okay,
Okay.
whenever I talk about kernel level privileges, let's think about it as God level privileges on the system.
Right.
So it's the fact that this is unknown, at least in the red team community, offensive security community, intelligence community. This has never been observed in the wild, so it can caught off guard a lot of ADR solutions. As
Okay.
I told you, ADR solutions like SentinelOne, we are very focused on anti-tampering mechanisms
Right.
that we offer to the customer to avoid these kind of issues. So having it documented, having it analyzed, and having it publicly known will hinder the these threat actors' capabilities.
How how widespread is the use of this tool right now? Are they using it in a whole bunch of intrusions, or is it more targeted?
Yeah, this is one of the main problem with this tool because initially we have, let's starting to state that we have a very good version tracking of this tool.
Hmm.
We internally, as our threat intelligence team is SentinelOne, is very well aware of this tool because we are tracking it since 2 years.
Right.
The thing is that in the beginning, this was used only by Blockbuster. Okay,
Okay.
this could mean that multiple operators have used it, but mainly this was part of the playbook of the Blockbuster group. Okay. Also, from our previous report, we didn't find any evidence that Blockbuster is a RAS, and observing our internal intrusion data, Blockbuster, all of the Blockbuster intrusion followed the same playbook. So it was more about, let's say, exclusive group, or if there was some affiliate was very close together.
Okay.
So our initial hypothesis was like that there was some kind of special relationship between FIN7 and Blockbuster, but then further evidences have been emerged because we released this report, and after we released this report, we saw Blockbuster that shifted a lot of TTPs and stopped using it.
Yeah.
Okay, and we said, okay, it's this tool is done. And surprise, surprise, after 2 or 3 months, starting beginning of January 2023, we have seen a lot of different intrusion that was using this version of AVNeutralizer. So this was like a surprise for us. mainly because it's very unlikely that the same code is shared or the same implementation is shared. So it
Yeah.
was more likely that someone was selling this tool, was evilly selling this tool, was selling with high success rate. So just to give you the entity, we have identified a lot of intrusions. 10 of these in a 6 months period. Okay, I'm talking about 6 months period. 10 of these human operated intrusions were ransomware intrusions in which we have observed the deployment of Rust payloads like Lockbit, of course, Lockbit in the past when it still was operating, Black
Right.
Hat, Medusa Locker, Trigona. They were all Rust, Abos Locker. They were all Rust groups
Hmm.
that was selling RAS affiliation, and all of these affiliates had this tool. As in some way means that maybe they bought or maybe they got in other ways.
Okay.
The Our assessment here is that we were able to, and it was not an easy task, but through some intelligence analysis, we have been able to relate the poster and the specific advertisement to the AVNeutralizer tool. We have high confidence that the one that Goodsoft, that is one of the pseudonym that I have identified, is where advertising, the way it described it and the way it interacts in the dark web forums
Hmm.
was for sure selling AV. For sure, it's never for sure in intelligence, but it was highly likely that was the AV neutralizer tool.
Okay. And did Fin7 develop this themselves, or did they buy it from someone else initially?
The Our assessment here is that FIN7 is the actual developer.
Okay.
Now, what we haven't still clear evidence is FIN7 using this tool during their operations. This is something that we have not been able to relate. It could have been a chance that some of the intrusion, for example, that were deploying the lockbit, a locker, were potentially executed by FIN7
Okay.
because there has been report in the past, but like, for example, the product report for about FIN7 documented about affiliation between FIN7 and Lockbit. But we couldn't have found any evidences saying, okay, this intrusion that followed the Lockbit locker was executed by FIN7. This is the main thing right now. So now what is our assessment that FIN7 is developing, maintaining such tools, and they are integrating it in their let's say not integrated. They are catalyst for ransom operators because even if they sell these kind of tools at an expensive price, the fact that ADR solution today have become very, very much effective compared to previous service solutions,
Yeah.
attackers have very tough challenges in bypassing them. So using these kind of impairment tools are very valuable for them, and they, let's say, are intended to invest this high amount of money because it's for them is an high amount of money, $10,000 for a tool that just remove an ADR. So for them seems a reasonable effort, a
Yeah.
reasonable investment.
I was going to ask you what the price is, but I mean, $10,000 is a pretty significant amount of money, even if you're a successful cyber criminal.
Yeah.
That's not nothing.
That's
Yeah.
not exactly.
Yeah.
Consider that there are some exploits that on 0 days that are being sold for less.
Yeah. I suppose it depends on the target and what the platform is and all of that. So this AV neutralizer tool is clearly a post compromise tool. You need initial access to a system. You get in there and then deploy this and see if you can tamper with the EDR or other security solutions. Right?
Yeah, I tell you more. This is a post-compromise tool that requires admin privileges.
Oh, okay.
It's very rare to see some kind of tool that allows you to go into the kernel starting from a normal user. Also
Hmm.
consider that we need to understand that our current ecosystem, enterprises usually allows you end user to allows their employee to run as an administrator. So
Yeah.
having administrator privileges is quite common in Windows environments. At least this is what we see. So this is a boundary that ADR solution try to protect from an anti-tampering perspective.
Okay.
Having said that, the on top of that, they usually it depends on the intrusions, but most of the time we see a mass deploy of these tools within the ransomware deployment. So it means that it is assumed that the ransomware intrusions have went through a lot of steps: initial
Yeah.
access, domain admin compromise, persistence, and probably they also assessed all the assets to be deployed like the ransomware. So this is the kind of phase in which this impairment tool attached to.
Okay.
They deploy the impairment tool paired with the ransomware locker so that they know that the ransomware locker wouldn't be detected.
Right. Is it obvious to the end user of the machine if the AVNeutralizer tool has been deployed on their machine?
Usually, in the way it's deployed, usually not, because
Okay.
these tools usually are deployed from a very highly privileged domain admin administrator account. So it's like having a new policy update of a corporate laptop. So
Yeah.
you won't see it usually. The things that could work are anti-tampering behavioral protections. This is
Okay.
something that SentinelOne does. There are other solutions that don't do it. So if you have this kind of advanced protection mechanism from the kernel threats, you will be safe in that way. Of course, you need still to kick out the threat actor from your network, but
Yeah.
at least you are safe. You have enough time to react. Let's say.
Right. So now that you've published this new research on the updated tool, do you expect FIN7 to adapt and perhaps push out another version or change tactics in some other way?
Yeah, I think that, in my opinion, they are already aware that their tools are not efficient anymore. I mean,
Okay.
in my opinion, they get a lot of complaints that their tool doesn't work, mainly because,
Rad.
but not because they are fake, but mainly because ADR vendors monitor these kind of things and quickly adapt and react.
Yeah.
I think this is something that we have tracked in 2023. I think that by that they already are aware and they maybe are already working on a new version. Of course, we cannot back this with any evidence, but we are still on the lookout.
Yeah. Just based on what's happened in the past, it seems likely.
Yeah, seems like absolutely. Looking at the pattern of the behaviors, for sure. I don't
Right.
think they will let's say, retract from this kind of financial gains, let's say.
No. As long as the money is there, that
Yeah.
they're going to be there, right?
As I told you, this is in the ransomware era, the impairment tool have a lot of requests.
Yeah. Yeah.
So where there are
Awesome.
requests, there is market.
Right, of course. Yeah. Supply and demand. That's
Yeah,
how it works.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
All right. Well, Antonio, this is great research. Thank you so much for coming on to share it with everybody. And I really appreciate your time. This is great.
Thank you, Dennis.
Good to see you. Take care.